of Jesse McCree. See, you're still hiding in that box. Can't hide in that box forever, McCree. Oh, look at the time. High noon already.
That's Ryan, fastest box opener on this side of the Mississippi.
Come back, Shane!
My name's not Shane, kid.
Howdy there. Name's Ryan, and you know what time it is.
Noon.
'Cause it's time for us to take a look at everyone's favorite creamy, dreamy cowboy, Jesse McCree from the game Overwatch. If Overwatch is so good, how come there's no Overwatch 2? I ain't much one for waiting around, so let's get this doggy moving and start the review. And you better believe I'm going to squeeze as many McCree quotes in this review as I possibly can. Yeehaw!
Here's the box. It's got some chonk to it because there is one chonky boy inside. Of course, the pack has your standard Figma fare. Everything's neatly wrapped and cozy. Remember that because it can and will happen. Well, it's high noon somewhere in this world. So that means it's time for a closer look and to check out the details. This fella here likes both kinds of music, country and western. Let's start at the top and work our way down. What's a cowboy without his hat? He's sporting a tan telescope style cowboy hat, there's some cowboy knowledge for you, with a couple bullet casings and the Overwatch insignia up front. Gazing from underneath that wide brim, McCree gives off a menacing stare, topped off with his medium-length, shabby brown hair and full beard. His frayed, bright red poncho flows with the wind. He wears a dark brown work shirt underneath his chest apparatus, full with tubes and valves, totally decked out in a shiny metallic gold. We got a leather glove on his left hand and a fully functioning cybernetic right hand, with a nice little Punisher skull decal up front. McCree's never seen without his iconic belt buckle. You know the one.
Buckle up.
On the other side, he never leaves home without that big iron on his hip, also making room for a handful of bullets, as well as bringing along a few flash grenades. Catch McCree walking down Old Town Road in his leather chaps, apple-bottom jeans, and boots with the spurs. He's not good. He's not bad. But he sure as hell ain't ugly. Let's go over all the accessories that he comes with. Back in the saddle again. I'm not really counting his hat as an accessory since you can't pose him without it, unless you like his big blockhead. Let's start off with that paunch, which you will have to remove his hat when attaching. Just budge up the peg into his back. It also has 3 separate hinges for adjusting its angle. How about those mugs of his? You only get 2. One standard faceplate with his sly confident smirk, and the second being his cigar smoking face, which you get 2 of. One is a fat little Cuban cigar, and the other kind of being a cigarello of some sort. Let's go over all the hands he comes with. We got one open palm, a good balled up fist, a half closed fist, and one for gripping his peacekeeper with. On the robo hand side, we got another open palm one, the fist, one for cupping his cigar with or throwing up the deuces. This one's cocked and ready to fan the hammer with. Another half-closed fist. They don't really give you any specific items for the fist, so you can get creative with it. Lastly, his flash grenade hand. which comes 3 in a pair. They bunch together like bananas and you can clip them to his belt. Well, that's all for the accessories, folks. Of course, his 6-shooter can be holstered and you can choose to display him minus the poncho, but he sorta looks a little naked without it. Like shooting fish in a barrel. Let's swoop on over to what I liked and disliked about old McCree here. And that's how the West was won. Let's go over what I liked about our Huckleberry first. The little details. For a Figma, they were able to squeeze in all sorts of little trinkets and doodads from all the little pieces of his mechanical hand, like nuts, bolts, wires, and patterns. The piping along his chest pieces, even his holsters and chaps have nice additions to them. His hat has a worn and warpy look. It's cool to even see the hand cannon get some finer touches of sculpting. Next, his joints. With the figure being a little more on the bulkier side, I thought the ball joints would stand out like way more, but they are hidden fairly well. I like how they blended in the joint on his metal arm side, looking like Jax from Mortal Kombat. The facial features. McCree is known for being the #1 handsy boy in Overwatch, so rejoice dreamers, our dapper cowboy retains that chiseled facial structure, giving handsome Squidward a run for his money. I'm not used to Figmas having that non-anime look, so I was really hoping that they wouldn't drop the ball on this one. He looks pretty good to me. Rich with texture, he has a furrowed brow with rings under his eyes, a shapely nose and flared nostrils, actual full lips, and that all-American square jawline. One minor gripe would be his hat. I kinda wish he could be posed without it, but on the flip side to that, it stays on pretty well, unlike someone I know. So it's good to see that they are working on better ways to attach hats, because Megumin's hat is by far the worst hat design I've ever witnessed. Now off to the dislikes. His poncho. Speaking of the way accessories are attached, I don't like the way the poncho is one solid piece, only being held by one peg in the back. It'll slip and slide around when setting up poses, causing the peg to pop out a little, shifting the poncho to awkward positions. I actually like how Megumin's cape is attached to her as one whole piece, but I guess this one is meant to be taken off if chosen so, but again, there's really no point. His cigars, as the instructions mentioned, don't lose them, because just kind of jamming them into his pie hole doesn't work very well. I've came super close to having them blend into my carpet and swollen up when dropped. It's a very delicate procedure that requires multiple tries, trust me. His pistol grip. McCree's got some butterfingers when slinging his revolver. I believe it was an intentional design to have his hand opened a little wider to fit the gun in without doing any sort of damage to the hand or gun, but that means it can get a little wobbly when held. I would set up a pose and the gun would start to drift off towards another dimension. But the hand does work good for doing that gentlemanly tip. His swole shoulders, with the big old joints connecting his arms, looks like he's wearing shoulder pads. Another reason to keep the poncho on. Speaking of ponchos, the game art shows it draped over his right arm, but with this design, it can't be done, which would have been pretty cool. The Hasbro version follows that design. Real quick, the little glove end piece, they made it separate from the hand so it floats and can freely move wherever it pleases, just make sure not to lose it when changing the digits. Another bothersome issue was his stand. It wasn't a tight fit for me. I'd constantly have to shove it back up in him with every slight adjustment to his stance. And ever since I blew my diva in half, having the same sort of issues, I've been worried every time I have to use a little force to get the peg to stay put, it's a cataclysmic disaster waiting to happen. That'll do it for my likes and dislikes. Now, let's rate this rough and tumble gunslinger. Wanted, dead or alive. Let's get these ratings started with my first category. Posability. With our lonesome wanderer being a fair bit heftier, I was worried his limberness was going to be a little stiff. Well, unfortunately, in some departments he is, like in the neck and abs, which was expected with all that flare taking up space on his waist. But he makes up for it in the areas that count, i.e. arms, legs, and glutes. These joints are buttery smooth and are some of the best feeling ones I've seen on a Figma yet. Every pose I put him in felt sturdy and natural, even the awkward ones. He stands on his own pretty well for a Figma too. Usually they put up more of a fight, but damn, every position he just demands presence. Looking sharp and staunch, Jesse. Next is quality. I think Figmas are one of the most vacillated figures on the market. They can totally be on one end of the spectrum of being absolute crap, all the way to high quality precision German engineering. While there are a handful of frustrating nuances, he's a very adequate figure. The paint detail is on point, with the shiny metal flakes on this chest thingy, to the matte finish on his chaps, the moldings in the pocket as well, from the tattered poncho wisping in the breeze, to the square snip-toed style cowboy boots. More cowboy boot fashion facts for you. For apparent QC errors, there isn't anything obvious or glaring. Maybe that line around his sleeves kinda weird. The only thing unpleasing to my eyes is the top of his poncho. It's a tad wide and floaty. I'm sure the R&D team at Max Factory could have found a better way to snug it up. Last category is badassery. And boom goes the dynamite. You know McCree is one badass mother.
Whoa there!
I'm giving Jesse McCree 4.1
That's one big hog.
out of 5. Final thoughts. While this figure doesn't come with the most exciting accessories, everything feels right at home. There's enough stuff to get creative with, except the flash boomers. It was real easy to come up with poses for them, and a lot of fun to photograph too. Just watch out for that cigar and glove cuff, they're slippery ones. Our time-conscious friend here was on the pricier side, but with how he turned out, it feels as though almost every penny was justified. Super happy to have one of my favorite cowboys on my shelf. And it looks like the Soldier 76 Figma is going in the same design route. But the price was hiked, which has me unfortunately tapping out. Although Soldier Boy's pretty dope looking, it ain't worth it to me. Well, it's time for me to hit the dusty trail and ride off into the sunset. Thanks for watching. I also wanted to give a special shout out to everyone that's participated in my little event to get their name featured in this video. It's just a little way to show I appreciate every one of y'all that's helped me and this channel grow. Maybe I'll do more events like this in the future. So, as always, much love, thank you kindly, and I'll see you in the next one, cowpokes.